NEPIC. For those who don't know, Supply Chain Northeast is a fully funded business support program for regional SMEs. If you'd like to find out more about the fantastic work we do with local businesses and to find out if you and your business are eligible for support, you can head to supplychainnortheast.co.uk. We've got a great lineup of speakers for you today who will be talking about the Northeast process, automotive and digital sectors. First up, we have Philip Aldridge, Chief Executive of the Northeast Process Industry Cluster, or NEPIC for short. And then we have Paul Butler, Chief Exec of the Northeast Automotive Alliance. And finally, we have Hannah Matterson, Chief Executive of Generator. In terms of format, we'll be running the session one speaker after the other and then open up for Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions during any of the presentations, and please do ask questions, pop them in the chat box and we'll pick them up. Alternatively, during the Q&A session at the end, you can raise a virtual hand and ask a question like that. And we're looking at a 12:30 finish time. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our first speaker. Philip Aldridge is a biotechnologist with extensive manufacturing experience in the fields of antibiotics and pharmaceuticals. Philip was appointed Chief Executive of NEPIC in April 2018. Prior to this, he worked for the cluster for 6 years, helping to deliver several SME growth programs and supporting NEPIC's pharmaceutical community. So Philip, I'll now hand over to you.
Thanks, Glenn. So welcome everyone. I'll see if I can share my screen. Can people see that? Excellent. Good. Excellent. Okay. Yeah. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the Northeast Process Industry Cluster and the process industry that we have here in the northeast of England. And if I can make the slides move on, I can. Yeah, so we were a sector organisation, and we're very fortunate in the Northeast that we have a large number of process companies, be they pharmaceutical or chemical, petrochemical, plastics manufacturers, and a whole mass of supply chain companies as well. And as I'm sure Paul will tell you, companies that exist in clusters really tend to do a lot better than companies that are isolated. But to actually get those benefits of increased trade or indeed working together, sharing best practice, etc., responding to government, really you need a sector body such as NEPIC to actually make those synergies happen. So that's what we do. We get to know our companies, and so when we see opportunities, we can put people together in an intelligent way. We also represent the sector to government, both local and national government. Actually, I wrote to government yesterday about the UK REACH regulations that we're wanting improvement on. And that's one of the things that we do. We do lobby on behalf of the industry, often working with other sector bodies, chemical sector bodies around the UK as well. So just a little bit of our work in the past year. You know, we're growing. We took on an additional 50 members in 2020, and we delivered 80 events. Yeah, we seem to have quite a lot of them. And we very much responding to COVID, we pivoted to not having so many face-to-face events, but obviously moving online as much as we could. And so we actually put on a lot more events than we would not do normally. I think we did pretty well with that. Although, as you know, being face-to-face, you can't really replicate that. Business is done between people at the end of the day, and people have to engage. So we'll have to pivot back to the new normal at some point. Yeah, influencing is very important. As I said, we we try to influence government. We've had big issues around industrial gas pricing recently, and we've been trying to influence government over that. I remember an interesting webinar that I had with Kwasi Kwarteng, and I was asking him about these gas prices, and he got up and walked away. But we can only try to get the message over. Government doesn't always listen, but we keep bashing away. I think one of the things we've done well, and partly because of our pivoting to a more of an online situation, we've done a lot more in terms of communicating with our members and promoting our members. We have a members hub where members can post news or services or whatever, and all the other members can see those posts. And indeed, we gather them together each week. So there's about 20 posts per week go out on a newsletter, and that's all generated by the membership, and it's all part of bringing the cluster together in these strange virtual times. Strangely also, I guess, is that during 2020, we grew as an organization. We took on a new membership manager, and we actually recruited 3 innovation managers as well across pharmaceuticals, the circular economy, and biotechnology. So we really do have a lot more strength in depth within NEPIC now. And I think also we're trying as best we can to work with other organizations. We are a lot closer to the Northeast LEP and indeed TVCA as well. So I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to help local government deliver their economic policies via us. And I think that's very important that we work together so we can multiply the effect that we have on the local economy. And as Glenn said in his introduction, I've worked on a number of SME help programs since I joined NEPIC about 9 years ago. And we're very much part of the partnership that is delivering the supply chain Northeast program, helping SMEs to enter new markets, diversify, and help them that way, share the risk. So what's so important about the chemical process industry? Well, it's big to start with. It's a very big industry. We're talking about an annual turnover in the UK about £50 billion and a GVA of 18 billion. This is bigger than most industries. Although, because you don't go to the shop and buy chemicals a lot, people don't tend to understand that. And I think what another stat that's interesting is that 95% of all manufactured goods have materials in from the chemical industry. So we are the industry of industries. And so it's important from a strategic point of view that the chemical industry is successful, not only in the Northeast, but in the UK in general. Strategically important for all manufacturing. And you can see on this slide here, we're at the head of a number of supply chains. There's a lot of jobs that are supported. We export a lot. We invest a lot, both in capital and in R&D. So it's a crucial industry, and we're lucky that we have so much of it in our region. Yeah, so we are the main region in the UK for the chemical and pharmaceutical industries. And in fact, our cluster is the second biggest chemical cluster in the whole of Europe. So we are significant. Pharmaceuticals, for example, we produce 30% of the UK's manufacturing capacity of pharmaceuticals. So we are very significant as a cluster of manufacturers and supply chain companies. And I think, the supply chain that the chemical industry is involved in is a little different in that a lot of the big chemical companies make chemicals and then are used in a whole range of downstream industries such as medicines, electronics, food and drink, the automotive sector, cosmetics, plastics for textiles, etc. so the general public doesn't see our activities. And the other thing I think is different in that, unlike other industries, we haven't got a supply chain into the chemical industry where components come into the industry and then manufacturers put those components together and sell them to the marketplace. The chemical industry really, in terms of its supply chain, is dominated by those functions that you can see at the bottom of this slide. So especially engineering. And if you look at a lot of the facilities in the region, they're not particularly new. They're 40, 50 years old, and keeping them going, expanding their capacity, increasing their efficiency, reducing costs of goods, maintaining their safety record takes a lot of work. And a lot of that work is outsourced to companies in our supply chain. Obviously, professional services, health and safety consultants as well. And I think I would say that, you know, people think of chemicals as nasty things and dangerous, but the UK chemicals safety record is really exemplary. It's better than anywhere else in the world, and so much better than other UK industries. I think it's because the risks there are more obvious and they've been managed very well for decades. So yeah, in terms of the supply chain, IT, telecoms, there's a whole range of individual companies of different types that sell into the chemical industry. And I think one of the things that, one of the classic problems with trade is that SMEs don't really know who to talk to. If you've got a real groundbreaking product or service, it doesn't sell itself. And if you're a big company, you tend to be very lean, very few people in purchasing who tend to want to reduce the number of suppliers. So we form the bridge there. So we help small companies sell to the larger companies, and we help the larger companies understand the innovative landscape that exists in the supply chain. So what's happening in the chemical industry at the moment? You know, what's important? Is it growing? Will it be important in the future? Well, we think so. And the areas that we're working on, I guess, and have put a lot more emphasis on recently in an attempt to stay in touch with societal needs and our members' wishes. We're doing a lot in terms of clean growth and the circular economy. We are in collaboration with big companies such as BP and the Combined Authority on Teesside to map out what is needed to decarbonize the industrial cluster on Teesside. And we're getting a lot of support from government to help us do that, both through capturing CO2 and also the potential of producing more hydrogen. We produce more hydrogen in the Northeast than anywhere else in the country, but producing hydrogen produces a lot of waste CO2. We need to be able to capture that as well. We're wanting to do a lot more in terms of plastics recycling. Most of the chemicals that go into plastics are made in the Northeast, and a number of those companies are now putting in place recycling technology. The manufacturers of plastics are not responsible for the environmental damage that plastics do. It's people that throw things away in an irresponsible way that are the problem. And we need to make, the companies really want to take plastic back into their processes using new technologies so we can have a circular rather than linear supply chain. We're looking at the reshoring of pharmaceuticals. We're working closely with Northeast LEP to see what we can do in terms of both the manufacture of medicines that have been in short supply during COVID, but also looking at the supply chain to those pharmaceuticals. We're looking more at biomanufacturing as a more environmentally friendly and potentially safer way of making chemicals, because at some point we will we'll have to stop using petrochemicals to make chemicals, but biomanufacturing and industrial biotechnology could well fill that gap. It'll be a slow burner, but we have taken someone on to look at this space. And I think there's going to be new supply chain opportunities. It's interesting, yesterday at home, I received a communication from British Volt, from their chairman, and I think everyone in Northumberland will have got this communication, not just me, and they're talking about building a gigafactory for batteries in Blythe. And this is very interesting in that it's been estimated that the supply chain of materials and chemicals that will be needed for automotive battery manufacturing in the UK could be as large as £4 billion. And I want to help NEPIC members to get some of that action. We have chemical companies already selling electrolyte into the Nissan battery plant. And then there are other chemicals that used to be made in the region, like ethylene oxide, which forms the head of so many supply chains in for the chemical industry, for cosmetics, etc. It's not made anymore, and we're looking at a biotech route to bring those back. We've been very involved in the Freeport discussions, and we're really pleased to see that both LEP areas have put Freeport bids in, and I think these will help in terms of helping companies expand and helping us to attract more companies into the Northeast. I think Industry 4 is very important. When I started in the process sector, it was very highly automated and always has been, but I think we're seeing a step change of monitoring of process equipment, and we're wanting to help companies with that. And obviously renewable energy, anaerobic digestion and other methods of making energy is very important to us as well. So we're looking at a whole range of both technological and societal challenges within NEPIC. And I think, this is a bit of a snapshot of companies that are expanding across the Northeast. We have this massive polyhalite mine in Teesside being developed by Anglo American. We're talking many billions of pounds turnover. We're working with the Northeast Pharma Consortium on reshoring medicines manufacturing. And there's many other examples, especially around waste to energy plants, etc. But we need to build on this. We want to attract more industry into the Northeast, and we have the people and the skills and the expertise to be able to make a really good case. And I think the Freeport, if we get the Freeports, that will definitely help. So if you want help from us, you've already met Glenn. He's project managing the supply chain Northeast from a NEPIC perspective. And as he said earlier, it's a fully paid project. Basically, it's free. So if you want to use that to actually help get us, so you can get our help to help you expand into our industry, please get hold of Glenn. Or alternatively, Jo Fryatt, she's our business development director, and she will talk about the benefits of actually joining NEPIC and joining the other 300 companies that we have in our organization. Or you can contact me, please do so, about anything to do with this presentation, or if you want to talk to me about anything that we're doing. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of the process sector and our organization, NEPIC. There are about 14 of us now. We've grown, as I said, and I think we can make a big difference to your businesses. So please get in touch. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Philip. Great presentation. Again, if you've got any questions for Philip, please do pop them in the chat box and we will get to them at the end. Are you able? There we go. Okay, now I'm pleased to introduce Paul Butler of Northeast Auto Alliance. The Northeast Automotive Alliance supports the growth and competitiveness of the sector in the region. Paul became CEO in 2015 and has established it as the largest automotive cluster in the UK. Paul is also the only UK-based cluster benchmarking expert for the European Secretariat for Cluster Analysis, testing me there, who are mandated by the EU to support the creation of more world-class clusters across the EU. Okay, Paul, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Glenn, and welcome everyone. Great that you could join us this morning, and just having a look online, it looks as if there's quite a few of you out there, so it's fantastic to see. I think there's always been very strong links between auto and chemical, particularly if you look around plastics and coatings and so on. But we're going to see a lot more closer integration, particularly as Philip highlighted around batteries, but also the hydrogen economy as well, as we move towards more green fuels. So today I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the UK and the Northeast automotive sector, then a quick introduction to the NEAA. But I'm really going to focus around some of the key challenges and opportunities that are present within the automotive industry, and then a quick overview of a couple of the programs. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in terms of all the activities the NEAA does. We could be on here for quite a while, but I'll finish off with the website link, and obviously people, if you're interested in knowing a little bit more about the NEAA, have a look on the website or come direct to ourselves as well. So just moving on, in terms of the UK automotive sector, it's an extremely important sector for the UK economy. We generate 82 billion of sales, export about half of that as well. Have a lot in terms of employees linked into the sector, so 823,000 across the automotive sector in the UK. And I would imagine most people recognise the industry is well supported by the UK government. Obviously, in terms of the industrial strategy, the auto sector was a key feature within that paper. We were the first sector to get a sector deal as part of that. But you can see all those organisations on the right-hand side are all government funded and have quite a strong focus around the automotive industry. Just touching on in terms of exports, obviously the auto sector has been quite central to the EU exit discussion, but I think it's important just to point out the importance of that market to the UK automotive sector. So if we take for every 100 vehicles made in the UK, about 20 will remain in the UK. 43 others will be exported to Europe, 15 going to the US, 4 into China, 3 into Japan, and 15 to the rest of the world. So you can see the UK and EU market is a real key importance to the automotive industry. If we then look at the supply chain integration, no other sector is more integrated than the UK and EU automotive industry. We see about 1,100 trucks a day coming in from the EU into the UK, and that's about 42 million a day of imports. But in terms of the supply chain as well, 80% of all components that are made in the UK are exported, and 69 of those are going into the European market. So really key strategic sector for the UK with a strong focus on exports into Europe. In terms of the Northeast, we are a global manufacturing centre of excellence for the automotive industry. We have the UK's largest and most productive car plant with the Nissan facility. We've also got 3 of the top 5 UK off-highway manufacturers with Libra Cranes, with Komatsu and Caterpillar. We do have significant engine capability with Cummins, making large diesel engines, and in terms of Nissan with their engine facility as well. Thankfully, that's a petrol, so they've not been as deeply impacted on the impact of diesel sales, which I'll come on to later. But we do have a world-class supply chain, and most people think that is just limited to Nissan and its key suppliers. But we've got 31 tier one, world-class tier one suppliers based in the Northeast region. We also have an extremely productive workforce, and that's replicated as well within the chemical industry. I know from my days back working with NEPIC how productive the workforce is with it across the Northeast. To give you a context, if you look at the European average for vehicles per direct automotive employee, the European average is 7.1 vehicles per employee. Here in the Northeast, we're at 16.5. So quite significantly above that. We're also highly automated, very, very similar to the chemical industry. If you look at the usual matrix for measuring how automated we are, people usually talk about robots per 10,000 employees. Across the UK, that's about 74 per 10,000 employees. The EU is about 106. European leader is Germany with 322, and South Korea, the global leader, with just over 700. The Northeast, we're at about 500. So we're a highly efficient workforce, and we're highly automated as well. And I think that's key to how competitive we are as a region. But you can see some of the key stats there in terms of the automotive industry: 11 billion of sales, 30,000 direct employees, a number of R&D, 21 R&D centres, and I'll come back to that in a short while when we talk about electrification. So we are a global centre for the automotive industry, very strong in terms of its supply chain as well. And there's a lot of opportunities which I want to touch on in a short while. So one advantage of presenting second, it gives me an opportunity to amend my presentation. So I've dropped this slide in just to give you a little bit more context around the role of clusters in terms of supporting the UK ecosystem, business support ecosystem. So the government provides this national framework for us to operate in through the industrial strategy, or what's going to replace that in a short while. We've then got national sector strategies, and we've got national sector bodies focusing on key strategic issues for those sectors. You've then got lights of Northern Powerhouse, or the LEPs, who are looking at regional focus. And that's pretty much where we stop as a UK country, apart from the Northeast, where we're particularly strong around clusters. Clusters sit right in the middle there, and they connect these regional and national strategies together. So it becomes one, we have a stronger voice to both organisations, but two, we can coordinate these activities to make sure that there's a better service provided to our members. And I think this is one of the key things we do as a cluster organisation, is that connectivity across all these different strategies. Very much similar to NEPIC, we are an industry-led cluster. The exec board look after the legal function of the NEAA, chaired by Matt Boyle, who many may know across the region. Matt's spent 20 odd years in developing Sevcon. He sold that business about 2 years ago for 220 million. He then became the challenge director for Driving the Electric Revolution, which is a government programme focused on electrification, and took over chair of the NEAA about a year ago, following on from 3 successive chairs that were Nissan, the Nissan VPs for manufacturing in Sunderland. They still maintain presence when the exec board. We've got Alan Johnson, who was the new VP for manufacturing at the Sunderland facility, is one of our directors. But the wider advisory board are the group that are really driving the strategy forward for the Northeast automotive sector. So we want the NEA to be the catalyst through which the Northeast becomes the location of choice for investment within the auto sector across Europe. We want the region to be recognised as a true automotive powerhouse with a very dynamic and forward-looking and competitive supply chain, but also where we have strengths in research and development in new automotive and new manufacturing processes. We're really structured around these key areas. So we've got the exec and advisory board providing that vision and mission. We've got a NEAA team who are looking after the day-to-day activities of the cluster. And then we have a number of key strategic thematic areas that we focus on. And these have been consistent throughout the time of the NEAA, which is approaching 6 years now. Very much around the network and connectivity, understanding the size and scale of the automotive industry in the Northeast, connecting businesses across the network, and we do that through multiple different opportunities. If we look at just on the event side, the NEAA, like NEPIC, is at to pivot its delivery support for member companies. And since March, we've delivered over 100 virtual webinars to members in the wider sector. We've got business resilience, and we've done an awful lot of activity in that area. Underneath, we've got working level groups, which in effect task and finish groups, and not all of those are active at the moment, but they are groups that we've set up, industry set up, we've driven forward. Companies have got benefit out of it, and when they felt they've reached the point they no longer need to look at that subject, and they're closed down and new groups are set up. We've done a lot of activity in that area in terms of supporting the competitiveness and the efficiency of plants across the Northeast. Skills is an obvious one. I think most clusters will focus on that, and that's everything from school engagement all the way through to informing future curriculum. Trading investment, again, supporting businesses to look at internationalizing themselves, but also then looking at how we can support inward investors coming into the region. We're not a principal actor in the investment landscape. There are other organisations that are better suited to working with businesses to bring in that investment. DIT as an instance, Invest Northeast, the local councils have got very strong international activity. Where we come in is we provide a soft landing for businesses when they look to relocate or look to set up in the Northeast. And British Volt is a typical example of that. So the day they announced they were investing into the Northeast in Blythe, in the old power station facility there, we were contacted by British Volt to say we'll be joining the NEAA. We've got an event later this month, the 24th, which is a Meet the Buyer event. The keynote speaker for that event is British Volt. So anyone who's interested in battery technology and understanding what the opportunities are, obviously feel free to join us for that event. And then lastly, we've got a focus around innovation technology, and I'll come on to a bit more detail of this, but this is really where there are some real key opportunities for the automotive sector. And that is both in terms of the technologies going into the vehicles, but also how we make those vehicles. So if we just look at the key challenges the sector is facing, and also some of these challenges do bring with it opportunities. I would suggest that there's been no better time for new companies looking to enter the automotive sector than now, because the period of change, we expect to see more change in the next 8 to 10 years than we have in the sector's entire history. So if you think back to the very first cars that were made and what they look like against, say, the Nissan Leaf with its stage 1 driverless technologies, electric powertrain, etc., and you think of the change that's occurred in that time, yet in 8 to 10 years we're going to see more change than that. That's phenomenal. I guess there's really 5 key areas where we've got challenges, but also opportunity. First one is around electrification, and that's represented there with the Leaf in the background. This really is the primary focus of the automotive sector globally. It's a global mega trend for the sector. It also links into well, it's largely driven by legislation. So if we look at the UK, we know the internal combustion engine, petrol diesel, will be banned in 2030. So you won't be able to buy a petrol or diesel variant back in 2030 in terms of a brand new car. And hybrid technology will also be banned in 2035. And that has been brought forward significantly. So I think we were originally talking about 2040, then came down to 2035 and now been brought forward to 2030. So we really do have a focus on that. And if you look at the percentage of sales, electric vehicles now, if we look just a year ago, I think the figures were about 15% of all vehicles bought, new vehicles bought, were EVs or electrified powertrain. That figure is currently about 44%. So you can see already there's been quite a transition towards that. And we saw that with diesel, as soon as there were announcements around diesel emissions and increased taxation and so on, diesel sales plummeted quite significantly. Now the government has set these targets around 2030. There's a massive move towards electrification, and the consumer will move before those are bans, because people consider resale value, etc., of those vehicles. We've then got EU exit and the trade deal. So as part of that trade deal, we've got the rules of origin to consider, and this does bring with it opportunities for UK suppliers. So as part of that deal, to qualify for free trade, an internal combustion engine, petrol or diesel variant, has to have either 55% UK or EU content to qualify for those free trade. We're okay for internal combustion engines in the UK to hit that. If you look at electrified, that is a challenge not only for the UK but for the EU. So Philip mentioned the Nissan battery facility, which was sold to Envision a few years ago. That is our only gigaplant in the UK. It was the first European gigaplant. I think there's one, maybe two other battery facilities now in Europe. If you think about the fact new sales are representing 44% electrified powertrain, the battery content of a vehicle is about 50% of the overall value of that vehicle. So it's extremely important to the UK to make sure we onshore more battery capability. So the facts, the Northeast has the first European gigafactory with Envision. We've got the second UK gigafactory with British Volt coming to the Northeast is a real plus for the region. And as Philip mentioned, we've got electrolyte production in the region with Mitsubishi Chemical. But because we've got the producers, the battery producers in the region, I think that really does provide quite a key opportunity to onshore the two other key commodities in terms of cathode and anode. And I think the Northeast will be a good location for those businesses to locate into the UK. If we then look at digitisation, industrial digitalisation, it's a huge opportunity for the automotive sector. So I've already talked about the fact we've a highly productive workforce, we're highly automated. Digitization provides us the next step change opportunity in terms of improving our productivity. Papers out there, Made Smarter, suggesting we could see a 30% productivity improvement if we were to fully adopt digital technologies. The impact of that, KPMG and SMMT are suggesting that could add about 35 billion to the UK automotive sector by 2035. So it's a huge opportunity there. If we then look at connected and automated mobility, it seems less of a focus at the moment across the automotive sector, purely because of the challenges we've got in electrification. But it still is a key focus. If you look at the technologies going into vehicles now, they've improved significantly over the years. The driver assistance technologies, I think, reduced crashes by about 40% in 10 years. That is progressing. The Qashqai I'm driving at the moment has got stage 1 of automated driving. You can literally set it off, adaptive cruise control, and it'll drive itself down the motorway. You do have to keep grabbing the steering wheel every 15 seconds, otherwise it'll pull itself over and stop. But there's a huge opportunity in terms of connected and automated mobility. We have a world-leading testbed ecosystem, which has been developed through Zenzik. And we know the market, where the market's going. So the global market is expected to be worth over 900 billion by 2035, and the UK will be about 52 billion of that. So huge opportunity. And then the other one, which is more legislation driven, is green manufacturing. We've seen as a sector that the energy per vehicle has been reduced by about 43% in the past 20 years. However, energy is still our second largest variable cost, and energy prices are only going one way. So we've got challenges across the sector, one, to remain competitive, but two, to hit these emission targets, to really look at focusing on energy. So I think they're probably the 5 key areas where there's key opportunities for businesses. If we then look at the support for the UK support for these, then obviously we've got across the automotive sector, we've got the Automotive Council, which is a great example of industry and government working together to drive the sector forward. And they've really been at the backbone of the resurgence of the UK automotive sector. We've got Advanced Propulsion Centre, who are looking at all the technologies. They develop technology roadmaps in terms of electrification, batteries, lightweighting, where there's links into the chemical industry as well. And they've outlined all the new technologies over a period of time. So if you're interested from a technology perspective as to where you sit and where the sector's going, I'll certainly have a look at those reports. APC also manage the Automotive Transformation Fund, which has been announced by the government. It's $1 billion of funding for the automotive sector to focus on making sure we've got the right suppliers here in the UK to meet our electrification challenges. We've got Zenzik, as I mentioned, who will look after the connected and automated mobility. They've developed a roadmap setting out the plans up to 2030. The Northeast features in this in terms of looking at automated logistics, and I'll come back onto that in a short while. We've got the Faraday Institution looking at battery technologies, the industrial strategy, as I say, the auto sector deal, where we've got activities such as the National Manufacturing Competitiveness, NMCL, which is a key project for the sector. And then in terms of digitisation, you've obviously got the Made Smarter programme. There's also a huge opportunity in onshoring some key capabilities for the normal automotive sector. Whilst we will see a significant change in terms of the powertrain, 70% of the vehicle will remain the same. But there are key components that we would like to source more of across the UK. So a few years ago, I think it was about a 5 billion supply chain opportunity for the UK automotive sector, looking at common products such as alloy wheels, engine castings, plastic components, etc. That is currently being looked at the moment, and we expect a new opportunity list to come out from DIT and Auto Council. So it's worth keeping an eye open as to where those opportunities are as well. But what I want to do is really focus on where there's key opportunities for the Northeast automotive sector. So firstly, around electrification. Now, we have quite an advantage. I've already said we've got the UK's most productive car plant. They make Europe's most successful electric vehicle, the Nissan Leaf. Been in production since, I think it was 2013. Sorry, no, actually just celebrated its 10th anniversary. We've got last year, well, 2019, 46,000 Leafs were made. Really successful vehicle. We've got the first ever gigafactory. We've got the second one announced in terms of British Volt. So fantastic capability in battery production. In the other key element of electrification is power electronics, machines and drives. And as a region, we're the only region in the UK with that full capability. We have particular strengths in this area. We only region to make 1 million electric motors per annum. And we've got the UK's biggest automotive power electronics manufacturing plant here as well. When you look at that R&D that I touched on, the 21 centres, R&D centres in the Northeast, 17 of those are focused on electrification. Now, these could be university R&D led activities, they could be private companies, or a combination. So there's an awful lot of focus on that electrification. And we've got world-class, a fantastic university base for students coming into the sector. And one thing that we share with the chemical industry is we're also one of the best locations to locate manufacturing plants when you look at the labour and property costs compared to other key regions across the UK. So we've got a great base from which to grow. We've set up an activity called EV North, really looking at pushing the Northeast capability. It's very much industry-led as always. It's chaired by Ryan Morn, a popular figure from across the automotive sector, who was the founder of Avid Technology, but it's very much industry coming together to look at how we can capitalise on our inherent strengths and look at pushing ourselves forward to make sure that we remain at the forefront of electrification for the UK. That's a vision and mission. As I say, it's about making sure we maintain and strengthen our position, design, development, manufacture of electric vehicles and powertrain technologies, capitalise on this mega trend that I've touched on, and build on our regional assets and create new opportunities to attract inward investment and startups and scale up of companies in the region. And it is about supporting the NEA's core objective in making sure we become a true automotive powerhouse, not one that's famed for putting vehicles together, but we have that full representation of that vehicle manufacturer, key world-class supply chain, but also quite a strong focus around the R&D activities as well. EV North will support the broader UK ecosystem. And again, I think this one slide, if we just look at electrification, it points out the myriad of organisations that you need to be engaged with to understand what's happening across the sector. And this is what we try to do as an organisation, is keep abreast of what's happening across the sector and the key support programmes, and influence those support programmes to make sure the industry in the Northeast can capitalise on that. The second one is digitisation. So as I mentioned before, there was a report by KPMG and SMMT that suggested if we were to fully adopt digital technologies, we'd see a 74 billion benefit by 2035. Huge opportunities, and huge opportunities for SMEs. If we then look at the factory now, currently, it's high levels of automation, but machines typically are isolated, specifically programmed. Maintenance tends to be reactive. There's a lot of data islands that exist between zones, shops, and various parts of the factories and the supply chain as well. The factory of the future we envisage is going to be connected, data-rich factories, fully integrated with full transparent supply chains, highly automated, smart machinery which can self-diagnose and adapt to change quickly. And to deliver that, we've got to look at these key areas. So there's about 10 key areas that we believe are vital to transitioning towards that factory of the future. And I think these are replicated across the Made Smarter program. So we're looking at integrated supply chain, end-to-end traceability, so we can understand where components have come from you may have examples, for instance, where you could have 5 or 6 different businesses supplying a particular component that goes into the final product. If there's an issue with that component and there's a vehicle recall, there's no way currently of tracing where that component has come from, the 5 or 6 suppliers. It's one of those 5 or 6 suppliers. You can't isolate which one. In the future, we'll be able to trace that all the way back through things like blockchain technology, trace where it's come from, and we can then just recall the vehicles that are associated with that one supplier. Smart robots, obviously, connected workforce, empowering the workforce, giving them access to real-time information at their hands to make them much more efficient. Digital twins, being able to replicate that factory environment, intelligent products, autonomous logistics, which I'll come back to in a short while because that's a key focus for us. smart maintenance, defect detection, and build to customer order. We're seeing a lot more customization going into vehicles, and that's key going forward for the sector. We will see a lot more customization going into vehicles, and in effect, where we're going towards is sort of the Amazon experience. So people can order a vehicle, they can then track where that vehicle is in its as it's being manufactured, and understand when it's going to be delivered, etc. So you've got a much more transparent process and much more engaging process, and that's key to the sector going forward. Touched on Made Smarter. I'm sure most people are aware of Made Smarter, but if you're not, I certainly recommend reviewing that paper. It really is about setting the UK to be a global leader in the creation, adoption, and exploitation of advanced digital technologies. 3 key programs: Made Smarter Adoption, which is really targeted at the SMEs; Manufacturing Made Smarter, which is targeted more towards the large innovative organizations; and then Technology Accelerator, which is about linking the two, taking industry challenges and connecting them with digital companies who could provide those solutions. A great program, and you're going to be seeing quite a bit of announcements, I think, over the coming months around Made Smarter and the Northeast. The third area I want to focus on is connected and automated logistics. We've got a current program, just short of 5 million 5G Create program to look at automated logistics. That is with all those partners in the bottom left-hand corner. And this is really just a natural progression of where Nissan have come from in terms of the adoption of automated logistics. So you go back probably about 17 to 20 years, they introduced automated guided vehicles into the facility. They've now got about 180 running around the factory, cumulative benefit about 7 million. They've then developed an outdoor AGV, which will move 8-ton towing capacity and move product between various shops within the plant. The next natural progression was to look at automating near-side suppliers. And when you look at the automotive sector, we do have a strong concentration. So within 2 miles of Nissan, you've got 11 tier 1 suppliers doing about 1,000 deliveries a day into that plant. So you can see the volume of activity. So the next thing they wanted to look at was automating HGV between a tier 1 supplier. So we've bid in with those partners to DCMS. We were successful. We've now got this 4.9 million project to look at automating an HGV. That will be a Terberg tractor unit towing a 40-ton trailer, and we'll move product between the Vantec building, which if you've been driving in the Sunderland on the 1231, absolutely no one can miss it. It's that massive building on the left-hand side just before you get the A19. And it's got a private road going into Nissan. And there's about 100 deliveries done a day just on that one route. So we're looking at how we could potentially automate that. We actually will be a UK first, probably European first as well, in terms of that tractor unit will be electrified. So we'll have a zero emission automated HGV operating between Nissan and Vantec by the end of, by March 2022. Key areas we're focusing on: 5G infrastructure, the automated system, teleoperations and cybersecurity in terms of making sure it's secure. It will be a first in terms of taking out the safety driver as well. So there'll be no one in the vehicle. We will have remote teleoperation to be able to intervene if the vehicle comes across any abnormal conditions. But we're really looking at using that program as a catalyst to develop more activity. So we've been successful in this pilot and proof of concept, securing that funding. We know there's a quick opportunity to expand that proof of concept out to near side suppliers who also have private roads. There's 4 suppliers with private roads. But we've been working very closely with Zenzik and Newcastle University to look at how we can establish a test bed for automated logistics here in the Northeast, and that's ongoing. So if you look at the Zenzik 2030 proposal and their submission into the comprehensive spending review, the Northeast is featured in that as a potential test bed, future test bed. So we're hoping to be able to get that established over the next couple of years, and we will become a world leader in automated logistics, particularly looking at the scale up of HGVs. Opportunity for the automotive sector is then expanded out to those 11 suppliers, near-side suppliers. That could potentially deliver a 25 million saving just into Nissan, but obviously it's not just about Nissan, it's about how we then get those technologies out into other related sectors as well. Other key projects I just wanted to highlight as well that would be a benefit to businesses. We're contracted.
Sorry to jump in, Paul. Just conscious of time, so we've got enough time for and Q&A.
Yeah, I've just got a couple of slides very quickly. So we've got a growth mapper, which is a diagnostic tool, Oxford Innovation diagnostic tool to take businesses through a 360 review. It's completely free of charge, and we'll be supporting 100 SMEs through that between now and March. So if you're interested, come through. We know about Supply Chain Northeast because that's why we're here. And then we've got another project that we're working on with those organisations. This is diversification, rail and aerospace, and it's looking at cross-sector opportunities, electrification, advanced manufacturing and digitisation. There we go. Any further information, just go onto the website and give the team a call.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Paul. That was great. We had some great questions come in during that one as well. Thank you. So I'll keep them coming in. Our final speaker today, we have Hannah Matterson. Hannah Matterson was appointed as the new Chief Exec of Generator in February last year and brings a wealth of experience across the digital, music and creative economy to her role. This includes working at Sage Gateshead on Sunderland 2021, Sunderland's bid to become the UK City of Culture, also Sunderland Culture and Mac Trust, where she focused on partnership development. So Hannah, I'd like to pass over to you.
Thanks, Glenn. I'm just going to talk at you, but very quickly because you've been talked at enough today. So as Glenn said, I'm Hannah. I'm the Chief Exec of Generator. We are predominantly a music talent development organisation. We've been kicking around the Northeast for 30 years now, and we support artists to take the next steps in their music careers, whatever that might be. But we are part of the supply chain project because over the last 7 years or so, we moved into working within the digital sector. And there's some really nice synergies between digital and music, which is why we kind of made that step in the first place. But many of you will be sat here thinking, why am I talking to you? How does this relate to the industries that you're working in? Because we have a really great, our main focus is the creative industries. So you might think of things like film and TV, music, fashion, and thinking, how are these in any way related to the two presentations that you've just heard? But actually the creative industries include things like software, they include create tech, so things like augmented reality, virtual reality, advertising and design, and all of which probably have or can have an impact on your business and the way that you work. The creative industries are really important. So they contributed over £111 billion to the UK economy in 2019, and they grew by 7.4%, which is 5 times the rate of growth for the whole of the UK economy. So they are a fast growing set of industries, and they employ around about 2.3 million people across the UK. So they are in no way small. They have a huge economic impact, and that is growing. In terms of their relevance to the Northeast, it's a rapidly growing sector, particularly around digital. So in terms of software and tech, the Northeast has a sector that's worth over £2 billion. Just at the beginning of this year, Newcastle have been highlighted as one of the key cities for digital growth in 2021, alongside the likes of Manchester and Leeds. So it's great to see some northern representation there, but even better to see the Northeast mentioned in that, which is the first time that that's happened. The Northeast has some amazing emerging sectors when it comes to digital. So we're really strong in gaming. So we like to make games up here, and that is a big kind of international level that we work at. But we're also great at things like virtual reality, software development, cloud computing, systems design, and communications. So those kind of things might be the things that you want to implement within your business that can make you more productive, that can make you work smarter. But also, you know, in terms of culture, in terms of the way that the Northeast works to develop people with these skills, you might have seen that there was a huge pot of money called the Culture Recovery Fund that DCMS gave out to arts and cultural organisations due to COVID-19. And the Northeast got more pounds per head than anywhere else outside of London for that. And there's a real recognition that a lot of that work was about adapting and transferring skills into a more digitised way of working. The Northeast has a really interesting ecosystem of businesses that work in the digital sector. So there are big multinational companies in kind of fintech and banking, healthcare, software development, but we've also got a really strong community of freelance workers as well. And so the kind of relationship between those is a really interesting one. Where we face challenges is that we have a lot of SMEs and a lot of startups, but a lot of those startups tend to fail within the first 12 months. So we need to look at how we can make businesses more resilient to the challenges that they face right now, enabling us to create stronger supply chains within our industries. So like I say, Generator's been around for 30 years. We've been working in the digital sector for the last 7 years, although I only joined in May last year in the middle of lockdown 1. So this is all fine, meeting new people just on a screen, because that's all I've done for a year. But we run a network called Digital Union. So Digital Union was known as Codeworks for a long time ago. And we recently changed the setup of this to focus on the digital creative industries. So it's a membership organisation, but it is free to join. You used to have to pay for it, but it became a bit of an old boys club, and that's not my style. So we made it free to join. And within this network, we are building up a community of people, of individuals who are CEOs and students, who are apprentices and managers. They're freelancers, they work for big companies, and everything in between. And we create a space where we can facilitate conversations and hopefully collaborative work opportunities and co-creation by putting those people in those places so they can discuss ideas and the challenges. You feel like you have a peer support network, but also we've seen real life work being won by people in those spaces, as well as some really interesting projects come out of them. We wanted to bring those people together because we feel like there's opportunities here for cross-sectoral work. So many businesses that are part of the supply chain project or access some of the help that we offer might come to us not really working within the creative industries, but they need some help with digital marketing, or they need to understand how their advertising policies work, or they need a graphic designer, or they need some promotional films making, but they don't know where to start. But all of those things are really important to the development of that business. So that's where Digital Union comes in, and we put those people around those tables. But we also look at talent development in that way as well. So we have a huge student uptake in Digital Union, and that is because we've worked really closely with further education and higher education institutions to make sure that it is a safe and informal space for younger people to join, so that they can be in that room with yourselves where you're looking for people to fill those roles. We're looking for people to see what's available on their doorstep and where their careers might take them within the Northeast. So we're trying to bridge those gaps between talent and industry. Obviously, COVID has impacted the sector's growth and has had detrimental effects on employment rates within the sector. But the one thing that if you're going to take anything away from what I say to you today, is that the digital industries are also proving to be some of the most resilient at this time. So you're looking there you're looking at the industry there with people who have the IT skills, who were the most adaptive, the quickest really. when COVID first struck. So they enabled remote working and still remained collaborative at those key times. They've also used this time for really interesting R&D work. So the North East has a really rich history of invention and creation. So now is no exception to that either. So we're looking at how we can use new technologies to make the way that we work easier, to make it more exciting, and to really test boundaries right now. Also, the digital industries have people who are creative thinkers and who can solve problems. And God knows we've got plenty of problems right now. So these are the people who have been able to say, actually, we can spot where those opportunities are for us to develop that specific bit of software or that specific bit of tech that might just help that one or two businesses to continue to survive, thrive, and grow over the course of the next 3 to 5 years. One of the things that we do is kind of making sure that everyone can adopt digital in the best way possible. So that might be your first foot into being able to do that. That might be saying, actually, we need to work on Microsoft Teams now. How do we do that? We saw so many people panic buy subscriptions to Zoom and Teams and Remo and all of these things at the beginning of COVID-19, but then not know how to use it or not know how to make the best of it. So what we do at Generator is we offer the businesses, we offer business support in terms of being able to work with SMEs, individuals, larger companies to say, this is how you can embed these digital softwares and facilities within your organization to be able to enable you to work better and work smarter. And obviously this can help improve your productivity, and it can really enable us to keep going right now. We see so many industries suffer. We're seeing so many businesses fail and close, that what we need to do is to stabilize. And also, I guess the final point I wanted to make is that, you know, this isn't all doom and gloom. We're a strong industry. We're growing and we'll continue to grow throughout this where other industries have shrunk. And we can use some of our expertise in digital to not only help with things like supply chains and help other industries, but also to help ourselves as individuals, that we can use digital facilities in terms of mindfulness and looking after ourselves right now, which obviously has a huge impact on people's workforce and ability to continue to work at the level that we need to sustain business. So it's not all doom and gloom. I would encourage you all to join Digital Union. It's free. Come along, have a chat, find out what we do, find out what other people within the region can do and how they and their skills can help your businesses to adapt and grow and become more resilient in this time. And I think I'll leave it there because I think we've got some questions to answer.
That was brilliant. Thanks very much, Hannah. Really interesting. Yeah, you're right. We do have some questions, so we'll open up for Q&A now. I think Louise has been keeping track of the questions coming in. So Louise, I'll just have a quick look. We had a really good one from Sue for all three speakers. Do you feel sufficiently supported by education and skills providers across the region for your future workforce? And then Jamie sort of piggybacked on the back saying, what else do you think we can do as education and skills providers to help your industries? So Hannah, Philip, Paul, anyone want to tackle that one?
I'll start if you don't mind, Glenn. I had an interesting meeting with engineering managers in Northumberland a few months back to discuss their big issue of the fact that you just can't recruit engineers in the Northeast. They keep the best ones swap between sites and so on. So we thought maybe the answer could be in terms of CPD provision. So we got them together with Newcastle College and Newcastle University. And it became apparent that there was really a big disconnect between what's on offer from educational establishments, colleges and universities, and what's needed. But there's a hell of a lot of good courses out there that industry doesn't know. So at the moment, we're working on a project to really map, to start with the pharmaceutical industry in the north of the region, map the CPD and training provision from colleges and universities to the needs of the pharmaceutical industry, because I think we've probably got a lot there without more courses that people just don't know about. So it's a classic cluster thing. It's about communication. So I thought that was a really interesting meeting that I held a few months ago.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Philip. Anyone else want to add something, or do you want me to move on to the next question?
I'll just add a quick comment. Obviously, as I touched on, the sector from an automotive perspective is changing quite significant change, and that change is coming extremely fast. I think one of the problems we have linking up to the education sector is it's a big beast and it takes quite a bit of time to turn that tanker around. There is a lot of activity going on across the sector in linking up to education to try and influence future curricula, and it is focused on electrification and digitisation, but that's been looked at a national level and a regional level as well.
And I think it's worth adding, from our perspective, we work really closely with colleges and universities because we recognise that there's not necessarily a skills gap, there's just a gap between the talent and the industry. So we often hear from younger people, I need to leave the region to get these jobs within the digital sector or within the creative industries. And then we hear from businesses going, there's no people here for the jobs. And we often talk about creating new jobs and creating opportunities for employment. And actually what we should be talking about is filling the jobs that are available, because they are there. And so we need to work more closely with people in industry to say, what is it that you want, so that we can help influence those educational institutions to be able to create and mould curriculum so that we are enabling a pipeline that is suitable for the industries that we have in the Northeast, because those opportunities are there and people want to take them up. There's just a bit of a disconnect right now. And it's also worth saying that actually, you know, there are things like degree apprenticeships that we've been working with Newcastle College on right now, specifically in digital, and those things start to come live later on in the year as well. So we're looking at other ways in which to engage people in the job opportunities that are here in the Northeast.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, we've got another one from Mark from Contech, who've been involved in the Supply Chain Northeast programme before. Mark says, within the networks and clusters, what are the opportunities to get in front of the relevant buyers and decision makers to make them aware of the services that companies within the supply chain can offer, and also to get involved in tendering for the projects that are planned? Paul, you might want to mention.
Yeah, I'll jump in first. So obviously, this is a key part of a cluster's function is understanding the capability that exists out there and matching it up with the relevant businesses. I think all clusters have multiple tools as to how they can help promote a business through portals, online directories, printed directories, newsletters, e-newsletters that go out, one-to-one introductions for particular organisations as well. And I think it's key to this is understanding what the USP is for that supply chain business. What is that business going to do different to an existing supplier? If we understand that, then we can support you in terms of those introductions. We also, as I say, we normally run our expo. We've not been able to run that physical get-together because of COVID. So we've introduced this Meet the Buyer. There's two elements of that. One is looking at procurement to support facilities, plant facilities, and the other is looking at the component side. So the networks do an awful lot in terms of that, but quite key is understanding what the USP is from each business to be able to sell that into the organisations.
Thanks, Paul. Anything from Hannah or Philip?
Not really. I think Paul summed it up. We have multiple ways of operating, and we have suffered, I guess, from a lack of face-to-face events where we have technical events on different subjects. Digitization is a very good example, but we still have been running those online, but it's not quite the same as being face-to-face. And we have fora where companies can pitch their ideas, their services to larger companies as well. But as Paul says, it's very important that companies understand why they're different and what their competitive advantages are, because people aren't looking for the same old, they're looking for some kind of edge. So we help companies with that and try to coach them in that regard. But yeah, all network organizations have a number of routes that we're always looking at to improve. I think the message really is get involved, come to events, ask us for introductions, use the networks for their expertise and knowledge of the sectors.
I'm slightly biased, but I would also say that now's the opportune time to adopt some digitization to help with that. Because just because you can't do your events doesn't mean that these things can't happen online. You're all here today for this exact reason. So if you pitch an event right, people will turn up and will engage. And it's about making those events exciting and engaging in a way that results in further conversations that might be more on a one-to-one level. So now is the time to do that. And, you know, as well as having your USPs and things, you know, and I think looking at different ways in which you can put your business out there and using digital to do that, you know, making sure your website works, making sure the links you put out are all good, having LinkedIn accounts and Twitter accounts and things, and being able to shout about the good news and the good work that you're doing to your particular audience is really key right now. And there's a lot of saturation in that space, but if you get your USP right, then you will stand out.
Glenn, could I just add to that? The other key thing is the Supply Chain Northeast programme, obviously, which is we're all part of, and that is about supporting businesses, eligible SMEs, to help them expand in an existing sector or to diversify into new sectors. So if you're not part of that programme, I would certainly recommend looking at the programme and joining, because you will get dedicated support from the clusters about how you can either diversify or grow in an existing sector.
Yeah, that's right. Cheers, Paul. I'm sure there's a few companies on here who can testify to how useful the programme is. Okay, we've got one for Philip from Ian at Elysian. We use Members Hub, which is great. How can we get to the right audience for the products that we develop? Is there a process through your team for assisting with getting to the relevant people and decision makers? So a bit similar to Mark's question, I suppose.
Yeah, it is similar. And, you know, I would encourage Ian and anyone else to come to events that when we run them to meet a whole range of new people. But I think one thing that I'm very keen on is to improve our Members Hub. At the moment, you can put news or whatever you're doing on there, but there's a lot on there. And, you know, it's a bit like LinkedIn, you get a lot of stuff you're just not interested in. So we're looking to sharpen that up and increase the categorization. So if you're interested in, I don't know, in digital solutions, there will be a category you can go to and look at all those digital solutions that are being offered. So that's something I've wanted to do for a while, and we definitely will be getting on with. I think the other area that we're interested in making sure we're a bit more sharp in terms of focus is funding opportunities as well. So we want to create a specific area on our website, probably within our Members Hub, where you can go to look for funding opportunities. The landscape, I think Paul's presentation was very good. There are so many different funders out there. It's difficult to keep track of it. So I think we're wanting to do something there to help people access funding as well. So watch this space, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you, Philip. Okay, we've got a question from, it doesn't say who from, but it's for Paul. We have two sites separated by a public road. Wondering if there could be any funding for an overhead or tunnel to join and use the autonomous vehicles for transfer of goods between, or is funding only for use to supply the parts to NMUK?
The project that we've currently got is a proof of concept, and it's just for that one single route. But obviously, we were looking at how we can get that technology out into the marketplace once it's been proven. In terms of, if you're looking at autonomous vehicles, currently within the UK, we have legislation that you can test on public roads, as long as you notify the relevant authorities and you've got the right insurance in place, you can actually test on the public road. And that's why the UK has an advantage over other global locations for automated logistics, or automated vehicles. So it could be an opportunity to actually cross that public road. The other thing I would suggest doing is speaking to your local council to find out whether there's any relevant funding available through them to look at doing something like that. I'd ask where you were based, but if you do want to contact me to discuss what some other options are, I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you to see what might be available.
Brilliant, thanks for that, Paul. Okay, we've got a question from Jamie Pell for Philip. Educating employers in all industries about what is available as far as apprenticeships and further education goes is a challenge. Perhaps this is because we're a private training provider rather than a college. Could you suggest any other ways we could approach this and get in front of more potential employers for the health and safety apprenticeships available, which we would feel suits the process industry perfect, for example?
Yeah, well, I think I'll go back to the why I answered the similar question earlier. Get involved, use our members hub, and really come and see us so we really understand what you have to offer, and then we can pass that on. We can do some targeting marketing as well, so that could help. So come get in touch, and we'll see how best to help you. I think, as we said earlier, it's about really understanding our members. You can only really understand them by having a chat about what they're offering, and then we can work out the best way to help. And I know, Glenn, you experienced this with Supply Chain Northeast. You've got to get to know the client, the product and service, and then we can see how we can help. We have a number of ways of helping, but get in touch and we can have a chat about it. And if we have nothing suitable, then we can think about something else. Need to be flexible.
Great, thank you, Philip. Okay, we've got a question for everyone from Joe at Lumo Tax. All of the speakers today have mentioned R&D. 45% of R&D claims have been made in the Southeast and London, with 60% of the refunds paid out to this region. How do you think the Northeast can maximise this opportunity to make the most of these HMRC funded schemes? Anyone like to tackle that one?
Well, I think it's in terms of businesses understanding what is available out there. As you know, Joe, we're constantly pushing the Lumo R&D tax through the membership, convincing organisations they should take the time out to look at it is some of the challenges. But I think people just have to understand that the claims are there, they're available. The NEAA actually did a claim with Lumo, a successful claim, added quite a bit to our bottom line. So take the opportunity, keep pushing it out into the networks. But as I say, it's about businesses taking that step to want to understand what's there, and then two, making that claim. And then using an organisation like yourself, Joe, who understands R&D tax claims to make sure they're maximising that claim, because that is another key part of it. So we've got loads of examples of companies who've done it, but then never maximised it. And we've been able to work with them to make sure they've been able to maximise it.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, if I just come in, Glenn, I think I agree with that. I think there may be a perception about R&D tax credits that it's only for people that are doing research. But I remember my time in the manufacturing environment. We were always trying to improve and innovate to make the product better and reduce costs of goods, increase yields. All those activities are innovative and could be claimed via R&D tax. The R&D tax system. And obviously the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that you can still claim those tax credits even if you're a loss-making organization, and get cash. And obviously cash is in short supply at the moment, with a lot of people struggling. So I would urge Joe to provide us all with more case studies, because they really do illuminate, if that's the right word, what's on offer, especially if you're doing something different, like if you're a service organization, you can improve. And thinking about how you've improved, the time and people's salaries you've put into that improvement can be claimed. So I think there's still a lot of ignorance in this space. And again, it's about communication, getting people together and talking about it.
Absolutely. So any R&D tax queries, Georgie, man? Okay, I think we've timed that about right. I make it almost 12:30. That's it for the questions. So thanks for sending those in. I just want to say a big thank you to all of our speakers today. 3 really interesting presentations, and I hope you all found them useful. We will have some post-event comms going out with copies of the presentations for those asking. There's also a recording of the session available for those who'd like it. We are